The CEO's blind date was already 20 minutes late when Daniel Hart checked his watch for the third time. The restaurant was one of the most exclusive places in the city: soft golden lights, crystal glasses, low music that hummed like a secret. It wasn't the kind of place people got stood up in. Not him, at least. Daniel Hart, founder and CEO of Hart Innovations, was used to precision. Meetings started on time. Contracts were reviewed twice. Decisions were calculated. Blind dates, however, were apparently not part of any reliable system. His assistant had set this one up after months of insisting he needed a life. The woman was supposedly charming, intelligent, well-traveled. "Perfect for you," she'd said. His phone buzzed. He glanced down. "I'm so sorry, something came up. I can't make it tonight." That was it, no explanation, no reschedule. Daniel stared at the message longer than necessary. Around him, couples leaned close, laughing softly. A man in a navy suit clinked his glass against his partner. Someone celebrated a birthday near the window. Life moved, warm and glowing. He sat alone. He could leave. He should leave. But something in him resisted the idea of walking out like a rejected teenager, so he signaled the waiter and ordered anyway. If nothing else, he'd enjoy the quiet. He had just taken his first sip of sparkling water when a small voice interrupted him. "Excuse me, sir, is this seat taken?" Daniel looked up. A woman stood beside his table, holding the hand of a little boy who looked about 5. She wore a simple pale blue dress, the kind someone chose for comfort, not attention. Her hair was pulled back loosely, and there was a softness to her face that felt unguarded. The boy clutched a small toy car in his free hand. Daniel blinked. The woman smiled apologetically. "I'm so sorry to bother you. They're fully booked and my son really wanted to sit somewhere he could see the fountain. We won't disturb you, if it's all right." Daniel glanced at the empty chair across from him. He had reserved it for someone who never came. He cleared his throat. "It's free." Her relief was immediate. "Thank you truly." They sat. For a moment none of them spoke. Daniel became acutely aware of the contrast: the expensive watch on his wrist, the tailored suit, the quiet authority he carried. And then the little boy swung his legs under the table and whispered loudly, "Mommy, he looks like a superhero boss." The woman's cheeks turned pink. "Ethan," she murmured. Daniel surprised himself by laughing. "A superhero boss?" Ethan nodded seriously. "Like the ones in movies, the ones who own big buildings." Daniel tilted his head. "Is that a good thing?" Ethan considered it. "Only if you're nice." The woman covered her face briefly. "I promise he's usually shy." "It's fine," Daniel said, still amused. "I suppose I do own a few buildings." Ethan's eyes widened. "See." The ice was broken. Her name was Lily Carter. She wasn't meant to be here tonight either. She had saved up for weeks to bring Ethan somewhere special after he'd finished his first year of school. The fountain had been the selling point. He had seen pictures online and talked about it for days. Daniel listened more than he spoke, which was unusual for him. Lily's voice carried warmth. She spoke about Ethan's obsession with space, about how he insisted on wearing mismatched socks, about how he once tried to mail himself to the moon using a cardboard box. "And you," she asked eventually, "what brings you here?" He hesitated. "My blind date canceled." She blinked. "Oh. Yes." There was no pity in her expression, just something thoughtful. "Well," she said gently, "then I'm glad we found the spare seat." The words lingered between them. Dinner arrived. Ethan insisted on showing Daniel how fast his toy car could race across the table. Lily apologized more than necessary. Daniel found himself asking questions he hadn't asked anyone in a long time, about school, about favorite stories, about what Ethan wanted to be when he grew up. "An astronaut," Ethan declared, "and maybe a pizza maker in space." Ambitious, Daniel said solemnly. By the time dessert came, the restaurant no longer felt like a reminder of rejection. It felt unexpectedly full. After dinner, Ethan tugged at Lily's sleeve. The fountain. She checked the time, just for a few minutes. The fountain glowed outside the restaurant, illuminated in shifting colors. Ethan gasped when he saw it up close. Daniel followed them out without fully deciding to. Ethan ran ahead, laughing as the water shot up and fell in perfect rhythm. Lily stood beside Daniel, watching her son. "Thank you," she said quietly. "He's had a hard year." Daniel glanced at her. "How so?" She hesitated, then answered honestly. "His father left when he was 2. It's just been us since. Sometimes I worry I'm not enough." The vulnerability in her voice was not dramatic. It was simple, real. Daniel looked at Ethan, who was trying to jump over the light reflections. "You brought him here," Daniel said. "That counts." She smiled faintly. "You're kinder than you look, Mr. Hart." Daniel Hart. Her eyes widened slightly. Recognition flickered. "You're the Daniel Hart. I assume there aren't many." She let out a small breath. "I read about your company expanding into educational tech. My students talk about it." "You're a teacher." "Second grade." Something shifted inside him. He thought about boardrooms and quarterly reports. And then he pictured Lily in a classroom, tying shoelaces, calming tears, explaining fractions. "That's harder work than mine," he said. She laughed softly. "I doubt that." Ethan ran back toward them. "Mommy, can we come again?" She crouched down. "Maybe one day." Daniel heard himself say, "You should." She looked up at him. "I mean," he continued, "the fountain isn't going anywhere." There was an awkward pause, but not uncomfortable. "Can I ask you something?" Lily said. "Of course." "Why didn't you leave when your date canceled?" He considered the truth. "I'm tired of leaving," he admitted. "Work first, always. People eventually stop waiting." She studied him, as if seeing past the tailored exterior. "Well," she said softly, "tonight you didn't leave." The simplicity of it struck him harder than any corporate negotiation ever had. They exchanged numbers before parting. It wasn't dramatic. No promises, just possibility. Daniel didn't expect to see her again so soon. 3 weeks later, he visited one of the public schools partnering with his company's new literacy program. He walked into a second-grade classroom mid-morning. And there she was. Lily stood at the front explaining a reading exercise, her hair tied back the same way. Ethan sat in the third row, focused intensely on his worksheet. She looked up and froze. Daniel felt something unfamiliar in his chest. Not nerves exactly, something lighter. After the lesson, she approached him. "You're evaluating the program." "Yes." "And—" He glanced around the room. Colorful posters, handwritten spelling words, small desks. "It's not perfect," he said. Her face fell slightly. "It needs more support," he continued. "More training, more resources." She folded her arms. "That requires funding." "It does. And you're the one who decides that." He met her eyes. "I am." Ethan ran over before the moment could grow too serious. "Superhero boss." Daniel crouched down to his level. "Astronaut pizza maker." Ethan grinned. Daniel stood again and looked at Lily. "I'm expanding the program," he said simply, "starting here." Her eyes searched his face, as if testing whether this was charity or strategy. "It's not because of me," she said firmly. "No," he agreed. "It's because you're right. This is harder work than mine." The expansion wasn't announced publicly for weeks, but Lily saw the changes immediately. New books, updated tablets, training sessions. They started meeting for coffee, then for walks in the park with Ethan. Daniel found himself rearranging meetings to attend a school play. He learned how to assemble a toy rocket. He discovered that Ethan hated broccoli but loved stargazing. One evening, months after the canceled blind date, they returned to the same restaurant. This time, there was no empty seat waiting for someone else. Ethan sat between them, proudly explaining his latest space facts. Lily reached for her glass, her hand brushing Daniel's. He didn't pull away. Later, when Ethan ran to the fountain again, Lily turned to him. "You know," she said, "if your date hadn't canceled." "I know," he replied. She smiled, "Then thank her." He shook his head softly, "No." "Why not?" "Because if she hadn't canceled," he said, looking at her with quiet certainty, "I would have left before you ever asked for the spare seat." And for the first time in years, Daniel Hart, CEO, strategist, builder of empires, felt like the luckiest man in the room. Not because of a deal closed or a company acquired, but because one night, when he sat alone, a single mom had been brave enough to ask for the spare seat.